Kansas City Sports Update Studios. Welcome to Kingdom Radio, where we talk about all things Kansas City Chiefs. Brought to you by Arrowhead Update. Join Chris and Richard on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, Player FM, CastBox, and all third-party applications. Check us out on Facebook platforms such as Kansas City Sports Update and Arrowhead Update. And if you cannot find us there, Google or search Kingdom Radio and Kansas City Chiefs, and you will find us. Welcome to the Kingdom. How are we doing, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome to Kingdom Radio. And we have a lot to talk about here. It is Wednesday, July 10th, and as always, I have kris-Chavez with me, our senior NFL analyst. How are we doing today, Chris?
Doing fantastic, well rested. And yourself?
Well, I couldn't be better, and I'm really excited to talk about what we have to break down today, because there's been some question marks through the offseason like there were last season. But this year it's about our defense. And I want to bring Chris and I on the show today to really give you a more in-depth look at everything that we have going on with the defense, and especially the key pieces that we have added to Chiefs Kingdom. And so with that, look, the Chiefs had a complete defensive overhaul, and this is where we're going to break that overhaul down. So I'm going to start off with Steve Spagnuolo. That is the key to everything here, and I feel like that, that he's the centerpiece to everything that we're trying to do. But look, Steve Spagnuolo has kind of had an up and down career. He was a defensive coordinator in New York for the Super Bowl runs. He likes to be extremely aggressive, given the right pieces. And I think that Kansas City has put him in a position with the pieces that we've brought in to where he can really accelerate his coaching career to the next level as well, because it has been a bit up and down. He has been a head coach as well as a defensive coordinator. But do I think that Spags will catapult the Chiefs to a Super Bowl victory? I do. Yes, I do. And I think that's kind of the exclamation point on what we're trying to do here in Chiefs Kingdom, and that's why we brought him in. Brendan Daly, the defensive line coach, he is another great piece. We brought him in from the Patriots. We kind of stole him from New England, and I'll tell you how we got that done is Brendan Daly's wife is from the Kansas City area, so we kind of used that leverage to pull Brendan Daly in. And look, he was a part of all three of New England's recent Super Bowls. That's a really big deal to bring the first two coaches on our list here into Kansas City with multiple Super Bowl rings. And with that, Chris, go ahead and let's talk about Dave Merritt.
Yeah, so Dave Merritt has ties to Spags' coaching tree, so to speak, with the Giants. He also coached Sam Madison, who is also on the team or coaching roster now as an assistant defensive backs coach, but that's going to be his first year coaching. Dave Merritt, he's been coaching since, I believe, 2002. He was most recently the defensive backs coach in Jacksonville in Arizona. He has a history coaching Honey Badger in Arizona, as well as coaching rookie safeties with both Landon Collins and Buda Baker in Arizona as well. And, excuse me, probably the most exciting coaching hire for me this offseason was bringing in Matt House from Kentucky.
Yes.
He was being looked at, or in certain circles, as potentially even being the defensive coordinator that we brought in before we brought in Spags. And when we didn't get him for the defensive coordinator position, I was kind of let down. But then there were still rumors about us bringing him in, and after some back and forth with Kentucky, we finally were able to tear Matt House away from Kentucky. But the thing about this here is that Matt House actually wanted to come to Kansas City.
Which is a great scenario. It seems like everybody wanted to be underneath this Andy Reid coaching staff. And, let's be honest, Chris, don't you think that this is the best defensive coaching staff that the Kansas City Chiefs have had in recent history?
Oh, absolutely. I'm so excited to see what these guys do. not just this year with this defense and how much they're going to turn these guys around this year, but in the next couple years as they continue to develop and work with these guys and get to know them, their idiosyncrasies, and really turn them out, we could have a defense here potentially that could be just as good as our offense.
Yeah,
and I think that's really important to point out right now.
And I think that Chiefs Kingdom really needs to understand that too, because I don't think that they quite realize just the talent that we brought in with the coaching staff, as well as all of the talent that we brought in from around the league. Because, in my opinion, what I see from what we brought in at least 3 to 4 pieces to this puzzle that were number one players on their former defense. And that's a huge aspect. That's another thing that I think we need to hone in on, is just how much of an impact these players had on their former teams that we have brought in here to Kansas City. And so with that, we're going to move into some of these players. And I'm going to start off with Frank Clark. And Frank Clark, we're talking about a man who's played 4 seasons and had 35 sacks in those 4 seasons, with 8 interceptions, 4 forced fumbles, 7 fumble recoveries, and he has got to the quarterback 72 times. This man is all over the field. He has an extremely fast first step and a great snap count anticipation. If you watch Frank Clark and what he does, that man is off the ball so fast because he memorizes a snap count, and I just seems like he just hones in on the psychology of the quarterback and everything that everybody's doing. And this man is the fastest off the line that I've seen in a long time. He's also great against the run and the pass. He gets his hands up. He gets in those zones. He's really a ball hawk, and that's really what we're looking for here in Kansas City. And to be honest with you, he reminds me of a guy who used to wear the number 58. I just don't think that Kansas City truly sees the value in Frank Clark, because in my mind, this man is worth every single penny that we paid for him. And Chris, I'm actually going to let you step in here. I want to hear your take on Frank Clark as well, because this is one of those things I don't think Kansas City understands what we got.
No, Frank Clark was a huge steal, and we paid a steep price to get him here. He's an absolute steal. I mean, the fact that you have a player of his ability and potential, that he's available for a trade, I mean, that'd be like going back in time and offering to trade, or potentially even successfully trading Derek Thomas to another team.
Yes, exactly.
And not only that, but this guy hasn't even reached his peak yet. And you bring him in to the Kansas City Chiefs defense and surround him with this coaching staff as well, and as well as this talent, the sky's the limit for this guy. He's going to be able to absolutely just dig in and go after that quarterback and that running back, and he's going to be a heat-seeking missile.
Yes, and he really is, because this is one of those guys that he's always in the backfield. He's always in a running play, and he always has his hands up when there's a pass in the air. This guy is truly, truly, like you said, a heat-seeking missile. And look, I legitimately feel like every player that we brought in is a heat-seeking missile. And we were going to, Chris, look, we were going to do 2 players each, but I want us to go back and forth. Go ahead and start off with the Honey Badger. Let's talk about him for a second.
All right. So Tyrann Mathieu, coming off of his 3rd highest overall grade in his 6-year career. He stepped in with Houston Texans last year on a 1-year contract, kind of having to prove himself a little bit coming off of an injury. And for the first time in his career, he kind of had to step into a leadership role there, and he really flourished. And we're just going to be taking that player that he developed into last year with the Texans and bringing him in here to do the exact same thing. And already what we're hearing all throughout the offseason is that he's establishing himself as that team captain, as that playmaker, as that leader on that defense. And he and Frank Clark have both been quoted as saying, we're going to be finding our identity on this defense, and we are going to be that. And I loved hearing that all off season, that they're going to be establishing this defense and that they want to be or build a reputation for themselves.
Yes, and I love the fact that they want to be the face of this defense, and that's something that, outside of Eric Berry, who really hadn't been on the field that much the last 3 seasons, we lack the leadership. And I think that, it's going to be no secret that is their defense. And the Honey Badger is one of those players that he hasn't had as much talent around him in his entire career as he does now. So I feel like he's going to do even better in Kansas City than he did in Arizona or Houston.
Absolutely. And another thing that's working in his favor is that he's working with a coach that he has history with in Merritt. Merritt and he worked together in Arizona.
See, and
so,
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Nope, go ahead.
Okay, so Merritt's going to know him really well. He knows what he's capable of doing and potentially what he's not capable of doing, and is going to be able to coach up the other players around him. And I know you're going to touch on this guy later with Thornhill. Well, he'll be able to develop Thornhill into a player that's going to complement Honey Badger really well.
And I'm actually, let's go ahead and talk about Juan Thornhill, because this is a really interesting combination that we're putting together here, because we're talking about an athlete who had 6 interceptions last year with the University of Virginia, and in 2 years had 10 interceptions. And this is another guy who is a ball hawk. And another thing that I noticed about him, he reminded me a lot of Eric Berry, because Eric Berry was really good at stopping the run, but this guy is faster than Eric Berry, and I have not seen a safety have so many tackles for a loss than I've seen in the highlight reels with Juan Thornhill. Look, he's an extremely intelligent player, and he seems to be in the right place at all the right times, just like the Honey Badger. These two are almost a mirror image of each other. So what do you think of putting both of them together? We really are creating an extremely well-rounded monster.
No, absolutely. Both of those guys are very versatile, and they could step in and cover the slot. They can cover the wide receiver man one-on-one, and they can sit back and be a one-deep safety. And having that ability in both of your safeties really opens up this defense to a lot of different combinations and looks that we show the offense, show the quarterbacks, and for them to not really know or trust what they're seeing and know what's coming.
Right, okay. And so with that being said, that's going to take pressure off of our cornerbacks in any given package. So let's talk about Bashad Brayland here for a second. We brought him in from Washington to complement Kendall Fuller. We're really putting all these pieces together that in one way, shape, or form, they all have ties to each other. So what do you think about this, our secondary? We have the safety solidified. That'll take the pressure off of Brayland and Fuller. So tell us a little bit about Brayland. What do you think he brings to the table for the Chiefs?
Well, Brayland is a former number 1 cornerback not number 1. He had the potential to be a number 1 with the Redskins. He definitely showed the ability, but when you're playing across from Norman, you're never going to really have that opportunity to take that number 1 slot. Last year when he came in mid-season with the Packers, he played weeks 10 through 17. During that time period, against 23 passes, he only allowed 12 passes to be completed. He was the second lowest passer rating allowed during that time frame at 39.8 rating. There was only one other player that rated lower than him. Wow. And that's going up against another 106 cornerbacks during that same time slot. For him to be coming in and playing on a one-year deal, the guy's coming in at a very hungry rate. He knows that he's capable of playing at a number one level. Well, he's going to be trying to prove himself and earn a long-term deal and earn a lot of money and the respect that he feels that he probably deserves. And so we're going to be getting a lot from him this year.
Hey, and I completely agree. And then I also think with him coming, look, him and Kendall Fuller should be extremely comfortable with each other. And I'd say that Fuller has a better year as well. And then you add, Thornhill and the Honey Badger, dropping down underneath these routes. Like it is going to be a scary year for any other opposing quarterback. I'd hate to see, I'd hate to be them, to be honest with you.
Oh, absolutely. And another thing that I want to bring up, because he kind of brings in all of these players together, we kind of saw the ability last year in Kendall Fuller where he's willing to step in and make tackles in the run game. We've completely overhauled our secondary. Every single one of these players that we've brought in loves to come down and play against the run.
Yes, huge deal.
Absolutely.
Hey, they all can get into the backfield as well. They all can get to the quarterback. They all are great against the rush, and they're all amazing against the pass. And I really, do you think we'll have a top 10 secondary this season?
Honestly, I do. And I think that, even if we didn't have the front seven to help them out, you just have those back four, back five, going with a nickel back. Like, we have the talent back there that could probably hang with any offense that we line them up against.
And I'd have to agree with you.
On top of that, we throw in the front seven who are going to be putting pressure on the quarterback, making them make bad throws. We easily have a top 10 defense, if not one of the top 5 in the league right now.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more with you. And that's what we want Chief Kingdom to understand is when you break down the positions and you break down the talent that we have in each position, what we brought in, we might have one of the best defenses in the last 25 years. And so you mentioned the front seven, and we're gonna go back to the front seven here. And I want to tell everybody about Alex Okafor. We brought him in from the New Orleans Saints. Look, we're talking about a man with a lot of talent, a Pro Bowl guy, first team All-Pro, 6 seasons, 22 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, and also a man that I don't think has been utilized right in his career. One thing I noticed about Okafor can play linebacker and defensive line. He's always in the backfield, always. He has extremely fast hands, and he's an agile guy for a bigger player. You don't want to run on Alex Okafor's side of the ball. The guy just gets off blocks. He's big, powerful. Like I said, he has fast hands. He's great at getting in throwing lanes and getting his hands up. He finds any way he can to get to the ball. He is always in the play. And he has a motor that just will not stop. And I feel like that's another steal that we got. He was another number 1 guy on the defense from New Orleans, so I feel like he was a steal. Give me your take on Alex Okafor, Chris. What do you think of him?
This is going to sound kind of ridiculous, especially coming off of the fact that you just said that he was their number 1 defender. But he's very much a team-first guy. He's never about getting his numbers and ballooning up his numbers. He's willing to also sit in there or dig in there and do the dirty work and eat up blocks so that the play can develop, and the other players who are running their stunts and whatnot, they can do their work and they can get to the quarterback.
Yes, he's that dog that is just always everywhere. And like you said, doing the dirty work, getting in there, pushing guys around. I mean, this is a big, strong guy. And it's crazy to watch some of his highlights because, you know, he's more agile than you think he would be because he's so big. But let's go ahead and let's stay, you know, on that part of the field. Let's stay in the linebackers. Tell us about Emmanuel Ogbah. What do you have there?
So we got him in a trade from the Browns, and has a truly rare mix of physical gifts. He's really fast for his size, plays bigger thanks to a fantastic wingspan, and he has big, strong hands. He's a sack artist who can produce excellent tackle totals, both in the backfield as well as down the line when you're trying to stop the running back who's trying to break it outside. For his career, he has 17 career passes defensed.
Wow.
And 2 years ago, he was number 2 in the league in passes defensed for a defensive lineman. He had 8 knockdowns that year.
See, and that's the thing is, you know, when you have a player like Ogbah who truly was not being utilized right in their system, like the player that I'm going to touch base on next as well, this was one of those things that he was a low risk, high reward, just like Darren Lee. And I feel like this man has been itching to get in the right system since he came into the NFL. And I think that this is a guy that's flown way under the radar that Kansas City has completely overlooked, that I think is going to have a career year this season.
No, absolutely. And I'll also tie it back with something else you were saying about Frank Clark and Okafor. Or you also throw in Chris Jones, and all 4 of just those players are very well known for knocking down passes.
Yes, it's crazy the amount of talent and versatility we have from each player. Look, we brought in a bunch of players. We focused in on Honey Badger and said Honey Badger is an all-around football player. He's not just a safety. He can play every position. I mean, I feel like we have that from every single player we brought in free agency, trade, or the draft.
Absolutely. Every single player we brought in has more than just one skill set that they can contribute. Whereas, like in our past with other GMs, that's all that we did was we looked at, okay, what can you do well? Okay, we're going to bring you in for just that. Veach's vision and Reed's vision is so much bigger than that. They have, I'm imagining that they have a laundry list of check boxes that the player has to tick off in order for us to even consider bringing them in.
Yes, I feel like you have to be a utility player to be on the Kansas City Chiefs defense.
No, absolutely. You have to be a Swiss Army knife in order to fit in here because we do run a very complex defense, or Spags does. And with the expectations, you could be doing anything on any given play. You have to be willing and able to do those things.
Yes, and so that's why I say players like Ogbah weren't utilized correctly in their system, which is going to bring me, you know, to our next guy on this list that we brought in, and that's inside linebacker Darren Lee from the New York Jets. And I want to start off by saying that we're talking about a Darren Lee who was a former first-round pick for the New York Jets, but was also the fastest linebacker in Division I football. And look, so the Jets picked up C.J. Mosley, and he's one of the best inside linebackers in the game, and that made Darren Lee expendable. Darren Lee is really great against the pass. He's also a great pass rusher. And this was my big player And I'm going to put Ogba in there too. He was my number one player that I was saying that the Jets, they didn't utilize him right. And he is another player that is a low risk, high reward, and I feel like that he can have a breakout season as well. So what do you think about Darren Lee? Do you put him in an Ogba position as far as being not utilized correctly and possibly being able to come into Kansas City and have career seasons?
Oh, absolutely. I would definitely venture to say that he's probably one of the more undervalued transactions this offseason. And honestly, we have a lot of those this year. A lot of the mainstream media isn't even looking at these guys and talking about them. But you put them all together, and they complement each other so well. You bring in that tremendous speed in Darren Lee, who is great against the pass. Yes. And that's kind of something we haven't really had the last couple of years with our linebackers, especially our outside linebackers. We were dropping them back to pass, but their real skill set was rushing the passer. Justin Houston is the definition of that. He's coming off of a 20-plus sack year, and we go and drop him back in coverage almost the entire year. That's ridiculous.
Yes, and it doesn't make any sense, and he wasn't being used right as well in certain points of his career. And it's just one of these things that I think you brought in. You said the biggest point ever is all these players complement each other so well that this defense is a bunch of ball hawks with motors that will never quit. And that's something we haven't had in Kansas City since the 90s. And I look forward to seeing what Darren Lee and Ogba bring to the table. And look, we're going to go into our final player here in our defensive segment. And I think this guy is a great guy to close this segment out on because he's raised a lot of eyebrows in Chiefs Kingdom being a rookie. And that's Kalen Saunders. Give us a little bit about Kalen Saunders, the man who's doing backflips at the Senior Bowl it was?
Yeah. He came into the league being known as the Aaron Donald of the FCS. And just to make a tie back to another prior statement, Matt House coached Aaron Donald at Pittsburgh.
There we go.
And Colin Saunders has a lot of the same ability and agility that Aaron Donald had coming in. He has tremendously quick feet that never stop moving. Everybody talks about this guy's motor. It just does not stop. He's got a very quick reaction off the snap, quick hands, kind of like you were talking about earlier. It allows him to be able to defeat double teams and still apply pressure. He can hold his ground against blockers. He has a multitude of arm moves to defeat the blocker. And kind of going back to the backflips, he is extremely agile.
Yes.
His strongest asset that he's bringing to us right off the bat is his strength against the run game. He still has some room to improve in the pass game. However, over the last 2 seasons, he had 25 tackles for losses and 14 sacks during that time span.
Wow. You know, I really look at Kalen Saunders as he's going to be a mix between Aaron Donald and Dontari Poe. And that's kind of the way he has shaped his body. He's not cut up like Aaron Donald is, and he's not big like Poe was, but he's in the middle, and I feel like he has both of their skill sets wrapped into one player, and I think we're going to get a lot out of Kalen Saunders this upcoming season.
No, absolutely. I hate using this term with him because he's not really that, but he's definitely a project player, meaning that he still has a lot of room to grow and to define his body, but and we don't expect him to step in and be a starter right away, but he's definitely going to be in the rotation, and I could see potentially if he has more and more success throughout the year, he could potentially be the only rotational player or behind Chris Jones and Noddy. And just having an interior rotation of those three could be really scary.
And it really could be. And look, I feel like that Kalen Saunders is going to be one of those players that he got put in the right system at the right time, and he's kind of our little trick in the bag. And I feel like that he's going to flourish because of all the talent around him. It's just like on offense, like we were talking about on the last episode. You put one of these second string receivers in, and they're going to be open all the time, and this is going to be one of their breakout seasons as well. But I think that's the same with Kalen Saunders. That's just how it's going to work on the defensive side of the ball.
No, absolutely. And also pairing him up with all of these sack artists, he's going to be able to learn some other tricks of the trade to be able to defeat his blocker and get after that quarterback. We could, and wouldn't say in the first 2 years, but certainly years 3 and 4, I could expect him to become a quote-unquote Aaron Donald in the fact that he's going to be pressuring that quarterback right up the middle and forcing them outside to a Frank Clark.
Yes, and look, Kalen Saunders is in the best position that any player could be in football because of the coaching staff that he's under, all of the talent that's around him. I mean, he's got some of the best talent in the NFL around him. And if you can't flourish in a system like that, look, we don't need you on our team, but I feel like Kalen Saunders is going to be that guy. That's going to be my most underrated defensive player this year will be Kalen Saunders.
It's kind of hard to argue with you there. We have a lot of depending on the viewpoint that you're looking at, that mass media, it's pretty much our entire defense is underrated. But for those of us who know and who are studying them right now, Kalen Saunders is definitely a name that is still getting learned, but I think by the end of the year, we'll know him pretty well.
Yes, and I couldn't agree more with you on that. And so with that, look, we're going to have to end this segment here. We're getting pretty winded on it, but I want to say, after everything we've broke down and all the pieces that we have, I personally think, my prediction, we have a top 10 defense next season and potentially a top 5 because this is something special that we have going on. It's just going to take a few games for Chiefs Kingdom to see that. So, Chris, do you have anything else to add to our defensive breakdown before we move on?
Not really, man. We covered it pretty well, and I'm just so excited to see this defense in action.
Yes, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. All right, well, we're going to go ahead and move on. This is the No Look Pass, brought to you by Sean and Keogh Music Solutions, providing everything from simple background audio to complex creative audio pieces. Bring your project to life with Sean and Keogh Music Solutions. All right, this is the No Look Pass, brought to you by Sean and Keogh Music Solutions. This is where me and Chris ask each other a question to try to stump each other and test our football knowledge. And I'm going to take off today with the No Look Pass, and I'm going to ask you this, Chris. How many Super Bowl rings does our current defensive staff have? And that is our top 4 guys.
Okay. Let me see.
You can't look it up.
Oh, I'm not looking it up. I'm trying to add it all up. 2, 4... I'm gonna say 5.
You're close. You're close. On our defensive staff, there are 7 Super Bowl rings within our Chiefs' defensive coaching staff right now. So Kansas City, that is kind of my exclamation point on the conversation that we just had about the defensive breakdown and where we are at in Kansas City. We have 4 coaches on our team with 7 rings. So that's my no-look pass today. I'm sure that will catch everybody off guard, but I want to put an exclamation point on the defensive standpoint that the Kansas City Chiefs are in. So, Chris, what's your no-look pass to me?
Okay, so I'm going to keep it on the defensive side because that's kind of been the theme today.
Correct.
would you say that or would you take the over or under on 50 sacks and 20 interceptions for our defense this year?
I'll confidently take the over.
I absolutely have to agree with you there, man.
Confidently. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to put an exclamation point on that too, and I'm going to say we're going to have 70 sacks and like 45 interceptions.
45?
Hey, I know that sounds crazy. I know that's probably a little bit. Let's say, how about 32 interceptions? We'll go with
okay. I can go with that one. 45 was a bit.
Yeah, that's a huge number. We'll go 32 interceptions, and that's still a really big number too. But I feel like we can pull it off. Yeah.
With the talent and the schemes that we're bringing in, and I feel very confident going with that number.
Hey, I'd put money on that in Vegas. That's how confident I feel in our defense. Even if we don't get rolling for a couple weeks, which I don't see that happening. This defense won't allow that to happen. But I feel like it's going to be a record-breaking defense too. This is going to be a crazy, crazy year. And so, with all the focus, okay, so that is our no-look pass today. Okay, that was our no-look pass today. But with all the focus that we've had in the last 2 years on offense and on defense, we've really overlooked guys like Harrison-Butker and Dustin-Colquitt. And look, and I'm going to start off with Colquitt. This is a first-team All-Pro, 2-time Pro Bowler. Look, best punter in the game in my mind on the Kansas City Chiefs. And this guy, you mentioned in a few episodes before that Colquitt it was probably bored last season, getting bored with his job. And look, Colquitt punted 45 times last season. The NFL average was 71. I mean, this guy was probably bored to death on the Chiefs sideline with how well our offense has played. So what's your take on Dustin Colquitt? And then we'll talk about Harrison-Butker.
Well, as you kind of touched on, he's definitely in the conversation for the number or the best punter in the league. For his career, he has a net yardage of 41.4. And last year, I don't even know how many years he's been with us now. It feels like it's been 20 some odd. But he's still netting a 40.5 yards per punt average. And this guy has not been declining at all. He had 21 punts inside of the 20 last year on 45 attempts.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, that's a 47% of his kicks were inside. His career average is 41%.
Think about this. Think about this, Chris. During the Alex Smith era and now the Patrick-Mahomes era, it seems to be that Dustin Colquitt probably hasn't punted very much outside or, inside his own 45-yard line in the last 6 seasons.
Oh, no, absolutely not.
And
we've been able to move the ball. It gets him in the perfect position. But then, even then, I do remember a couple times we're sitting back at the 20, and then we're punting, and then the ball all of a sudden is down inside the opponent's 10.
Yeah, we're talking about a guy, didn't he have a 75-yard punt at one point in his career?
I want to confidently say yes, but I can't say with 100%.
I really want to say that he did because I was checking out this man's stats, and I want to have to say it's hard to dig for punting stats, and even when you get them pulled up, they're still hard to read. But I do think he had a 75-yard punt, and I'll tell you what, I'm sure his percentage for his career inside the 20. Did you already say it's over 40%?
Yeah, over is 41%.
Wow. That's incredible. That is a huge margin to be inside the 20-yard line, especially for a person. I bet he's probably been around 12 years, I would say. But the man needs his credit. He is a staple for the Chiefs' special teams. A special teams has really been a catalyst in the NFL for the last years and set the standard really for special teams. So let's talk about Harrison-Butker a little bit. We stole him from, was it Miami a few years back? What do you have on Harrison-Butker?
I'm pretty sure it was Carolina Panthers that we got him off of.
Carolina, yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, so Harrison-Butker, we just signed him to an extension, and this guy is, I want to say automatic, but for his career, he's sitting at a 90% field goal percentage.
Yes. Well, he's 0.1% shy of that, 89.9, but that is as close as it could ever get.
Yeah, and the guy is absolutely automatic from the 20 to 29 range. He's only missed one kick in his career inside of 30 or inside of 40, between 30 and 40. And even at 50-plus yards, he's at 6 out of 9. He's making 50% or better from everywhere on the field.
Yeah, he absolutely is. We're talking about a man who's missed 7 field goals in his career. And look, we've seen some players miss 7 field goals in a season. And like you said, he's lights out from 40 yards or in, and I mean he's pretty consistent from everywhere else. And you're gonna have a few misses here and there. Nobody's perfect. The world doesn't work like that. But we have about as close to automatic as we can get with Harrison-Butker and Dustin-Colquitt.
Yeah, and the really only knock I would have on Harrison-Butker is that I've never had to see him make a tackle in the kickoff coverage.
No? Well, that is also a compliment to him, saying that I'm sure he has a lot of touchbacks.
And we've got a tremendous special teams coverage team put together by Dave Tobe.
Yes, Dave Tobe has... Look, Dave Tobe sets the standard for special teams in the NFL. Hands down, there's no argument with that. So... I wanted to give Colquitt and Harrison-Butker there a little bit of love because sometimes they get overlooked in Chiefs Kingdom with all the excitement that's going on. So we're going to move on to our next and final segment, the season preview, where we break down a different team on the Chiefs schedule each week in order. And this week is Week 10 with the Tennessee Titans, which is a potential playoff team and gave the Chiefs problems in the playoffs a few years back. Go ahead and take off with the Tennessee Titans. Chris, tell me what you got and what you think we're up against here.
So the Titans have a tumultuous, sort of, so to speak, quarterback in Mariota. He's kind of on the fence. They haven't fully committed to him yet, so he needs to have a breakout year. I'm looking at their wide receivers. They're decent. And then at the end of the year last year, they had the emergence of Derrick Henry, who kind of, I don't say came out of nowhere. I mean, we always knew and expected this from him, but he hadn't lived up to that expectation.
Right.
Dude took off the second half of the year last year. Like, somehow he flipped the switch, and all of a sudden, he's making defenses look like they're high school kids.
Yeah, he's really stepped up to the plate and is living up to what we thought he would be. And also, Delanie Walker.
At tight end?
Yes, he really is another one that is coming into his own and is being everything that we thought he would be. It didn't take as long as Derrick Henry, but Delanie Walker is another threat. They're kind of a tight end heavy team, and their wide receivers are decent. And to be honest with you, I don't really trust their defense. Malcolm Butler is pretty much, the cornerstone of that defense, and he's old. I'm not really sold on the Tennessee Titans. Their depth chart doesn't stack up in any way, shape, or form to the Kansas City Chiefs on any level. Maybe got us in running back, but I won't even say that because we're not even sure where we're at. I look for this, Chris, to be our massive blowout for the season. We're going to go into Tennessee and blow the doors off the Titans. We're going to get to Mariota all day. Henry's not going to have a good day because Mariota is getting sacked all over the place. There's going to be turnover after turnover, and this is going to be the game that I think the Chiefs are going to shove it down the Titans' throat 56-9.
Wow. To kind of build off of what you were saying, I think Henry's going to have an awful game as well, but just because he's not going to be seeing the ball. we're going to be putting up so many points in the first half that Tennessee is going to be forced to throw the ball. And while they do have competent receivers and tight ends to complement the passing game, our defense is going to swarm them up, and we're going to absolutely destroy them and get to the quarterback and probably knock Mariota out of the game to the point where, not necessarily hurt-wise, but they're probably going to pull him out. And we're probably going to see some Ryan Tannehill somewhere in the second half. Their defense does, like you were saying, I look at these names, and there's 3 names on there that I know. Cameron Wake, he can get after the quarterback. Kenny Vaccaro at safety. They just brought in Amani Hooker, who he'll probably take some time to develop. And then, as you also said, Malcolm Butler. None of these names, by any means, scare me. I have to agree with you as far as that point spread. I'll probably go a little under it, like maybe 52. Thinking we might get a field goal out of it somewhere. But, yeah, 52-9 feels right here.
This is just one of those scenarios. The Titans are just no match anywhere across the board. Not even the coaching staff. There's nothing in Tennessee right now that makes me worry at all. I feel like Tennessee is kind of where Cleveland was a couple of years ago. They can't get it done. And I really look at Tennessee. I don't know. I'm never worried about the Titans. So I feel like we have Week 10 in the bag, which is going to be an important win for the Chiefs, more so than we think right now, because, look, we're starting to get into the part of the season that we're breaking down here where these games are extremely important. We have the last 6 weeks of the season here coming up, and, the value in each game changes from week to week, so we'll see that coming up,
Oh, absolutely. This is definitely going to be a game that's going to be I could actually see us maybe pulling some guys out early if the point spread gets big enough. Kind of keep them fresher, give them some time off, and kind of maybe even treat this game, and I hate to say it and phrase it this way, but kind of treat this game like it's a bye week, and maybe rest some of our bigger players, not have them play the entire game, so that they can be a little bit more rested for the second half of the schedule.
And really, that's something that would complement the second, the end of the season really well, is if we can get some games in where we sit some of our starters. But we have a team to be able to do that, and the Titans are a team that we can do that against. So Kansas City, appreciate you being with us today. Chris, man, as always, I love talking football with you. Thank you for being on the show.
Sure thing. Anytime, man.
All right, Kansas City. Well, look, you all have an amazing week. It is hump day. You got a few more days in the work week, and we can move into the weekend. And let's get excited about Chiefs training camp because it is just around the corner. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. You all have a great day. From the Kansas City Sports Update Studios, welcome to Kingdom Radio, where we talk about all things Kansas City Chiefs. Brought to you by Arrowhead Update. Join Chris and Richard on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, Player FM, CastBox, and all third-party applications. Check us out on Facebook platforms such as Kansas City Sports Update and Arrowhead Update. And if you cannot find us there, Google or search Kingdom Radio and Kansas City Chiefs, and you will find us. Welcome to the Kingdom.